Hello, welcome back to Doing Bart Things. This is Bart, and today we're going to talk about Nvidia just milking the video card market. So, um, pull up my notes here. Basically, the 4060 is kind of a cruel joke. So, I'm starting off with this article. I've actually got like 4 different articles on video cards pulled up. Um, if you look at the 3060, is kind of like one of the most popular cards out there. It may be the most popular card on Steam. Only just surpassed the 1080 not too long ago, I believe. Anyway, so the same folks that upgraded the 3070 to 16 gigs of RAM upgraded a 3060 from 8 gigs to 12 gigs. Now, this is a 128-bit 8 gig card. I did a separate rant on, I just, old man ranting. Maybe I should have made that the name of my channel. Old man rants about video cards or computer hardware. So, the 3060 can come with a 128 or a 192-bit bus. There's 4 versions of the card, which is what I was ranting about, is there's no designation. You just have to know where to look to find out whether your card is a 128-bit or a 192-bit 3060 with 8 gigs of RAM. I think some of them do come with 12 gigs now, because they made an entirely new version that does, and that caused 4 versions. Anyway, I'm not going to get into that rant. That was it. That was a different video. It's asinine and predatory, and I hate it, but it is what it is. So the 3060 8 gig 128-bit, when you upgrade it with more memory, you turn it from a 128-bit into a 192-bit memory bus. And that's essentially what they've pulled off here, which is pretty rocking. I commend them for doing this, because it was interesting. Like, when they did this in Unigine superposition, they got 22% more performance. It scored higher by a not insignificant amount. That's substantial. I would consider your you know, what's it called, the error percentage to be within like 1 to maybe 4%. Less or minus would be your room for error, or between different systems, different silicon, whatever. That's significant. That is absolutely faster. And I bet if they did a suite of tests, they would find that this card probably performed somewhere between 15 to 20% faster on average than the base model that had the regular 8 gigs of RAM and 128-bit bus, which is substantial. That's a generational improvement. So herein lies the issue. So you did that with the 3060. Also with the 3070, when modded to 16 gigs of RAM, I think this is an important point to make as well. Some games, if you take Resident Evil, for example, Resident Evil 4, which is a console port, if you look at the 1% lows, we're at 7 frames per second with 8 gigs of RAM. Like, it was just saturating the memory bandwidth and it was bombing. But when you look at the left-hand side, when they modded it to 16 gigs, now you're getting decent 1% lows. The frame rate average went up a bit, right? But the big thing is the 1% lows. Like, there's no stuttering anymore in this game. With the same GPU, they just added more memory. And that's because it was running out of memory on this game. And more titles are going to start just being unable to run fully effectively and super smoothly with 8 gigs of RAM on them. Because video game developers, it's not just, we like to say that they're lazy, but it's not just that they're lazy. Development time is expensive. And I don't think that a lot of them feel as though they should have to go performance optimize over the top of performance optimizing for a console, because this console essentially is a computer. Now they are different, and they address hardware differently and that sort of thing. But the question is, how much reasonable expectation do they have to go and optimize for PC and Windows when these things are basically, I mean, for example, Xbox. Like if I make a game that's for Xbox, that's Microsoft. How much effort have I got to go into optimizing it for Windows? They make both products. Um, it's Sony, I believe, uses AMD parts still, so that's a Ryzen variant CPU and GPU and Radeon GPU in there. Like, how much optimization do we got to do to make it run on the same hardware but in Windows? Taking time out to do that costs money and effort, and I think what's happening is they're leaving those frame buffers. Maybe that's the part that takes the most time because they got to figure out how to optimize and keep it within certain memory parameters. When the video card manufacturers could just put more memory on their video cards, and it's not that expensive for them. It really is not. It's dumb that we're sitting here getting charged hundreds and hundreds of dollars for video cards that have had the same amount of memory on them for years. It is so weird that they don't want to put that extra memory on there. It does not make sense. It really doesn't. Not the prices we're paying now, which is kind of what I'm going to get into. So the 4060 and 4060 Ti are set to come out at the end of May. And MSI had a leak. They slipped that it's going to be 8 gigabytes, basically. So the 4060 is going to have 8 gigabytes. The 4060 Ti is going to have 8 gigabytes. Like, they're going to make 8 gigabytes your entry-level enthusiast video card. Now, how much you think? How much? Yeah, here's your Ti. So how much you think this video card is going to cost? 300? No. 400? No. They have it. We're going to get charged $460 or $500, I'm sorry, for a 4060 Ti that I think is just not going to perform nearly as well as it should. Like, this card should soundly beat a 37. Should just do that. Like the one jump up in tier, if you will, traditionally. Again, this is Nvidia stuff. Nvidia is free to do what they want to do. We live in a free country. But this is not good. It's just not good. It should beat a 3070. It's not going to, I don't think. Maybe it will trade blows. And again, it gives no reason to upgrade for owners of previous gen hardware. It's just not. If I had a 3060 or a 3060 Ti, there's no way I would upgrade to this, especially with it costing hundreds of dollars more. What I think they're going to do is they're going to release this card, and they're going to get rid of the 30 series, and then force you to buy this if you build a new PC and you need a quote-unquote budget $500 video card. I think the 4060 will be $400. And I think it's also an equally horrible deal at $400. Looking at this, basically the stats on these cards, again, So the original 3060 that released that had 8 gigs of memory had a 128-bit bus. There's 4 different variants. They chose the one that has 12 gigs on it for the sake of comparison here, which can be had for $339, $340, something like that. It's kind of holding the fort down against Intel's Arc series GPUs and AMD's 6700. So that's how much this is. This 4060 is going to be $400. And I think okay. You can assume there's a generational improvement in the actual architecture itself, right? So 1-to-1, these cores are stronger. Without a doubt. I'm sure that they are. But it's got less. There's less density here. Well, maybe not less density. It's probably a smaller process, I think. But it's, yeah, it is. Like, this is Samsung 8. This is TSMC 4. Okay, so there's less density. But on these cut down versions, there's less cores. Right? Less cores, less memory, smaller bus, less bandwidth, period, which makes sense with a smaller bus. It does take less power. The kicker here, what I cannot believe, is PCIe Gen 4 X8. X8, not X16. What in the actual deuce is going on there? This just looks, and same thing with the 4060 Ti. Again, these cards just look like just a total cluster. Like, I'm going to get a soda and kick back on launch day of these and just watch the flames, because there's no way I would recommend these two cards. Honestly, I hate to even say this, but it might be a situation where if you're going to build a PC, maybe go find and see if you can get yourself a 3060, if that's like your target area of price. Either find a good AMD card, look at Intel's Arc card, maybe, at least, and then maybe buy one of these before this comes out. Because when this comes out, they're going to get rid of these. Guarantee you. These should be 4050 series cards, not 4060 series cards. It's that bad. And I feel that way almost about Nvidia's entire lineup, is that they have gone up a tier in price, and they have not gone up a tier in performance. They've gone up a tier in performance if this was last gen's card. Like, they basically have said, okay, well, we'll make the 4060 equivalent roughly of the 4070. We'll make the 4070 roughly equivalent to the 3080, right? Which the 4070 actually loses to the 3080 in a number of things. We'll make the 4080 way the hell more expensive. And the 4090 will be our Halo product that will be massively expensive. They're doing it because they can, folks. So they're just giving the least amount they think they can get away with, and charging an arm and a leg for it. So it's just, if somebody releases a better budget card than like the 3060, they'll release a new version of the 4060. They'll up it to 12 gigs of RAM, give it a 192-bit bandwidth. Like, they'll do that stuff if they have to, but they don't want to, is the problem. They want to charge you maximum money for least amount of stuff. This PCI thing is totally unacceptable, in my opinion. For a $400 and a $500 video card, this is asinine that they would do this. And again, it's regression. It's not even progress. It's literal regression from the last tier in some areas. So It's if you thought the 4070 launch was going to be bad, again, this is going to be even worse. Um, Again, they're doing it because they think they can. That's that's what's really happening here. They don't care about the low end. They're just giving the low end because there's not as much margin in it. They're just giving it to Intel and AMD. Here's what we are releasing. Come and get it if you want to beat us. So that's kind of the sad state of affairs with that. Basically, I really hope that other options make themselves known. Um, Market share hopefully will start to drift towards AMD and Intel enough to maybe make notice. Nvidia's honestly just been in such a dominating position with market share and sales, and then they have the server market now that actually to them I think is more important than any of this consumer stuff. I think that's why they're acting or doing what they're doing here, is they know it. Um, they just they're just in a dominant position, and we're paying the price for it. This is very much reminiscent of Intel before Ryzen came out. Um, Between the Phenom 2s were good processors, but kind of between those, where you had the bulldozer era, where AMD CPUs were just not great, and then it came back to Intel, or it came back to AMD when they released Ryzen. There's a gap there where Intel just basically rehashed and refreshed the same thing over and over again. We were getting mid single digit performance improvements generationally. Um, like, I think Sandy Bridge, um, people have used Sandy Bridge for like 6 or 7 years or more. Like, it just, it was like, well, why update? I can update 3 generations and get 20% performance. Like, what's the point? Um, if that. So I think that's kind of where we're at with Nvidia. I think that they just are like, nope, we have this thing dominated. They are going to release a new top end card because they can, and it will be huge profit margin, not because they need to. The 4090 sold really well at the beginning, and then it started to taper off. They knew the early adopters would jump in and buy it. So now that those early adopters have spent all their money and they're out of the market, Nvidia knows they're looking for their next fix. They're going to release probably either a 4090 Ti or a Titan card. I'm assuming I think it's Computex, like it's the middle of May. They're going to announce that, would be my guess. And it will be super expensive. They are not going to drop the price on the 4090. The 4090 is technically, supposedly, had a price drop to $1,549. It's a $1,600 card. They're going to charge I would be shocked if they only quotation marks, charge $2,000 for it. This is probably a $2,500 card. And it will either be a Ti 4090 or it'll be a Titan card, is my guess. So they're just dogpiling in on top of the thing that they've already got, right? They could do price cuts. They could try to be more consumer centric, but there's no reason for them to. They dominate the market. They have the lion's share of the gaming market anyway. Like, this is this video card took the top video card on Steam over another Nvidia video card that was a few generations old, I believe, not too long ago. So they're dominating, and they think probably this card will do the same thing eventually. They'll probably release another 4060 Ti 4060 version that's better than this eventually, when they decide, when like AMD or Intel get around to refreshing their super low end. AMD is actually about to, which there's a whole nother deal going on with them. They're about to relieve the 7600, which I think is going to be lower end than this, though, is the problem. They need a 7700, 7800. Like, they need those cards to come out. But I'm not so sure that even if they come out with those cards, their 6800 and 6700s don't actually compete fairly well with this even. It's just a mess. It really is. AMD is just content with seemingly not pushing the issue, which speaks volumes for how their latest node and cards have performed for them. But I do think people have got to open their eyes a little bit, take a look around, see if for their work or for their situation, if an AMD card or an Intel card might suffice. Especially if it happens to perform well in the titles that you play. Driver updates will be coming out and they'll only get better. So I wish Intel had some secret up its sleeve with just an ARC revision that they could charge a tad bit more money for, but it was substantially better in a way that would make sense. I don't think that that's really in the cards. I think we don't get any more Intel stuff this year, probably. I wish we did, because I think they could take some market share, then they could start making a business case for going after more mid-range, upper-end stuff, and just trying to build that business. Because I think it's going to take time. Nvidia is a giant. They are an absolute monster in the GPU market, and I think it's going to take time to refine your stuff to the point where you can be competitive. And I think that you've got to think in terms of generationally ahead and make a plan for like 5 or 6 generations out in order to stand a chance. Because Nvidia, they're already doing that. AMD is kind of doing that as well. AMD was super effective with it in their CPU launches. I mean, hats off to them. Like, Ryzen has been bam, 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 improvement with each launch. I think the lowest Ryzen uplift was like 15%. I mean, it's crazy that we're up to Ryzen, was it Zen 5? Zen 4. We're up to like Zen 4. And they have just really performed well as far as giving uplift in each generation. But yeah, GPUs are stagnant. Nvidia is just dominating, and now we are paying the price because we are getting the little bony leftovers of the chicken from the upper end cards, and everything is increased in price. There is no value proposition here, and it makes me very sad. So I'm hoping that people will start wising up to it. And again, I'm not here to tell you how to spend your money. If you think the 4060 Ti, when it comes out, you see some benchmarks and go, oh, this is great, you choose to spend $500 on it, that's fine. I think people get too caught up in how dare you buy this GPU or whatever. Like, it's your money. You're going to invest it where you're going to invest it. I can tell you that I will not be buying one for anybody because I just don't think it's a good purchase. Maybe if they come down the price, we'll have to see what the actual performance is. Maybe if you're building a small form factor system, they're very power efficient, but again, these would be like 50 series cards is what they should be. Like, this should be $200, maybe this $300. I mean, tops. And then so on and so forth up the line. It's very frustrating. Anyway, guys, thank you for listening. I'm sorry I had another old man rant on you guys. I feel like maybe that should be a whole playlist unto itself, just old man ranting about computer parts. But hope you're having a great day and an excellent weekend. Or I'm sorry, not week. Weekend, but week. And we'll be talking to you soon. Thank you.